Hey, Composing Gloves here, and today we're going to be taking a dive into some composition with half diminished chord progressions. Now here, because we're not going to be talking about the properties of it until later on down the line after we have a lot more under our belt, we're just kind of using it as an interesting chord to throw into a progression. That's sort of the idea. Let's toss it somewhere and see how it works. So I wrote out a melody first, and then I wrote in this sort of accompanying line. So let me really quick, delete. I wonder if there's a way to mute clefs. I don't know. But let's just delete this bottom line. So let me just show you. I'll show you the first half of my melody. So that's what's going on for the first bit. Let's delete this second part too. And then we go. And so mostly minor chords here, nothing too crazy. We're going from D to A to A to D. We have an F minor chord in here, oh, that's exciting. But we're tossing in. I wrote out the melody, and then I picked out chords. And here you see I'm outlining a D minor chord. So it's an arpeggio, a broken chord. And it goes do 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 do. And so over here, I was like, now it'd be pretty interesting to contrast the color of our first one by using a half diminished chord. And so I'm using it simply here as a new sort of color we can have. And so putting back my accompaniment. Now, when you're writing out small compositions such as this one, you want to be as detailed as possible. Both of them are forte, just so it's loud enough for you to hear. If you put piano, it gets extraordinarily soft. I'll have to look in to see if there's a way to change that. But let me go ahead and play for you the thing in its full glory. Also, the pedal should stop here, but I can't figure out how to change this stupid node to attach to that note. So it should just na-na-na-na-na-na, and then that note's all by itself, just like hanging. And that to me is what's supposed to be going on. But anyways, it looks proper. Piano player would play it correctly. This is just MuseScore, so sometimes you have to use your imagination. Oh. Okay, so I pretty much explained how I use the half diminished chord here. It's really not that crazy. I wrote out my melody, and then I said, okay, well, I'm going to use this in contrast to this. So I wrote out the same arpeggiation, only this time, now it's a half diminished, and it's going on. Now, the chords themselves, again, those came after I had decided, what I wanted to do. And then the accompanying line, all it's playing is it's playing lines that move around with the notes of the chord. I think occasionally I choose some different notes. There's actually terms for them, but we're just not going to worry about it right now. We're just going to call them things that sound cool. And when we get into harmony too, we'll begin to associate them with particular tools and names. Also, if you really want to know right now, in the MIDI music theory course, the videos from I believe it's 70 to 80 talk about all these tools. And so, yeah, the F minor chord, it just moved up. And I felt like, hey, going from D minor to F minor is a pretty cool deal right here. Not anything so crazy. And I know that D is not found in the chord of F minor, but it doesn't matter. My tonal center is going to be on F minor. And so you see here, I'm just railing F minor, and we resolve up to an F. And so it works out really well. Just because you have notes that are not in your chord that seem to play a prominent role does not mean that is the center. That doesn't mean that you have to go with that tonal center. You can choose other chords. It depends largely on how you've reached that conclusion. If this was some sort of resolution and we are over here and we're trying to finish out our phrase, finishing on an F minor chord but ending on a D, that'll sound really kind of weird. And but maybe that's what you want. Maybe you want it to push into something new. So, some of these things hopefully you're beginning to see how oh, wow, that is pretty useful. And then when you're writing out your melody and you're thinking about things you want to do around it, you can do that. Now, with this melody, this was an occasion where I did not have a melody in my head. I didn't sit here and sort of accumulate a vision. In this case, I sat down and I said, what I really like playing on the piano sometimes? I just like doing this. So I was originally just gonna do a bunch of that with some chords and maybe make it sound cool with some low end stuff, you know, boom, boom, you know, just outlining bits and pieces. But I did that first part, and there's this tie here, and you might be going like, how'd you decide on this tie right here that make it bleed over like this? By the way, this is proper barring. If you put like 3/8 notes in a dotted quarter note, that would be wrong. It needs to be tied, because remember, we bar according to our meter, and so we're metering in 4/4, so there should be a break with a tie here, not a dotted quarter note. That was a mistake I used to make, so I feel like I should mention it. But I decided on this tie because at this point I went da na na na, and I knew I wanted a D minor chord because I was just being simple and I wanted to be a D minor. Well, not, this is actually a mode, but I wanted to be hanging out around there. I thought that'd be kind of cool. So we go up, and actually, you know what? Because we have that. Oh no, it's an A flat. Never mind. Yeah, we're running around in a mode. So, yeah, sorry about that. I was a little jumbled right there. But we run up, and I just had this like epiphany in my head. I have no way of really describing how it works. I'm sure you have them too, where you just begin writing and you think, oh well, I could do this, and it's the reason why when we're playing with synthesizers, we get so distracted and we fiddle with the same sound for so long, things just occur to us. So this occurred to me, and I figured, oh, well, I'll do this nice, simple resolution at the end. And by itself, it sounds kind of boring. But then when we include this moving line, it gives it a sort of a feeling, an aesthetic. So I wasn't bothered at all by this. Some people, you know, they're scared to write simple lines. I think the person who knows when to write a simple line is like, they know what they're doing. Because anyone can just get more and more crazy. You just start putting down more and more notes till it's impossible to play, and then it's like barely musical. So I feel like this is a very musical decision, even though MuseScore has a very unmusical way of playing it, because the focus is on making scores. So anyways, after I had this figure, I said, okay, well, I'm going to use this figure repeatedly so that the listener has an anchor point. So here's my anchor, and you see I bring it up. It just repeats itself over and over, but in different ways. And if I were to create a variation on it, I could do interesting things with harmony to vary it up. There's a really great YouTube channel called 8-Bit Theory. I think it might be 8-Bit Music Theory. Whatever it is, this guy breaks down music theory, and now his stuff is a little more advanced. So, but if you can follow this stuff, you'll be able to follow his stuff pretty okay, probably. And he breaks it down in a way, and he talks about like things composers do to take something like, once you have a basic theme like this, how can you turn this into like a full-fledged piece? And, you know, because we've established what is a pretty strong idea. And so now that's like those sorts of things we approach later on down the line in Harmony 2, and we experiment more with those in Harmony 3. So anyways, that's that. That's just a little spiel on sort of some of the idea. The bass notes, if you're wondering like how I came up with these, I really enjoy figures that do stuff like, you know, they repeat one note and then other things move around them. So I did that here and just used my judgment as I was doing. So I hit my whatever the chord note is, and then I move up, you know, boom, bump, bum, and I move around on the notes of the chord. I've said that before, but maybe that makes it a little more clear. Here, you might be going, well, here you did something different. Well, that's because my what's happening melodically, it needs to be pushed into some sort of resolution, because I go up. It's over here I go down again, and I catch you a little off guard by going up instead. And there's new chord before you're sticking around with these D's and A's, and all of a sudden there's this F thing, and the harmonic speeds up a little bit, and it's sort of like a fill. It's a harmonic fill, so that when I reach my resolution, it's, you know, it's extra resolved. So if we play it, so it makes sense in the music, things flow better, and we have this sort of moment of tension, and it just gets released right there. It feels really nice, sort of like a waterfall or something. Repeating note, sort of an interesting deal, but it didn't bother me. Sometimes things like that can be bothersome, so you might find another note in the chord that would work well, but I thought it was fine because we have a chord change here as well. So yeah, subscribe, support me on Patreon, and have a blessed day.